Go. Welcome everyone to this month's Intentional Success webinar. We're going to talk about the art and science of quoting projects profitably. I get excited about the stuff, I get excited about my webinars in general, but this in particular, so much so that I actually did a webinar almost exactly like this last February, but so much has changed in just the past 6 months that I felt it was important to revisit again, make the adjustments to it, and teach some profound new lessons that we've learned just this year. Some of you may have learned them years ago. I don't know why you didn't share them with me, but we're learning them now. So for those of you who are new to this, I'm Tom Stimson. I'm president of the Stimson Group. I work with owners and management of companies in the live event industry, all through the verticals. So I work with strategy, process, and just coaching. So if I can help you, don't hesitate to reach out. Let's have a conversation, understand your needs. It's what I call have an honest conversation and see what we can do for each other. Always new followers on the webinar. A few names there I don't recognize. Welcome, glad you're here. Obviously we are being recorded. I always double check at this time, even though I see the little light going. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box, or go to the chat box, say hi wherever you're from, introduce your company, get to know your community here. Many of you could, if you have a pressing need right now, I don't care if you're looking to hire somebody, just put it in the notes there. That's your chat. Enjoy yourself. Questions in the webinar, I'll respond to questions in the Q&A box. So when you have a question at any time, and it can be on anything, but hopefully it'll be on what I'm talking about, put it in the Q&A box. I'll either answer it live, in real time as it comes in, but I do save time at the end to answer as many questions as I possibly can. I expect a few questions in today's webinar, pretty much from the beginning. So bring it on. Let's get right into this thing. So the question I always ask at the beginning is, why did I put this webinar together? What's this all about? Here's what I've been seeing. This is what's been coming across my my desk, particularly the past 8-10 weeks, is that as things got busy during chat seems disabled. Okay, I don't know why chat would be disabled. Can chat with everyone. Well, hey, we've all dealt with Zoom. You should be able to chat now. Give it a shot. I don't know about you. I had a lot of wonky things with my Zoom this week. I had to reload the app several times, and of course they like to reset things on us. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of folks worrying way too much about what customers are going to think about their prices on individual items, not just the job in general, but how you got to the price, which tells us something about how we're dealing with our customers. I'm also finding people are negotiating price without considering the value. In other words, what they're negotiating is the value of the thing that's most important instead of the value of things, of scope and things like that are much better to change. I'm also seeing that a lot of proposals that are really focused on what's important to you as the seller instead of what's important to the customer. And trust me, we come by this rightly. I grew up in this industry just like most of you folks did, and we were taught how to do this, and this is how it works, right? You start with the equipment, you talk about the gear, you put some people on it, you put some delivery on there because somebody told you had to. But a lot of things have changed, and a lot of things have changed since February, when we went through the pent-up surge, found a lot of new customers, found no pushback on pricing. It was mostly about availability. We're having very different conversations. Our proposals got to catch up, right? So let's do this. Let's go back to Rental 101. Customer calls up and says, I need to rent a tripod screen. Great. Yes, ma'am. Our tripod screens are $40, but I'd like it delivered. Oh, okay, well, I can't charge you more for delivery than I charge for the screen. So, okay, delivery is $35. Great. Let's think about what this customer is really asking for, because we've approached this from a rental standpoint. We've done equipment plus delivery, and we've not considered the value at all. when you talk to a client, no matter how small the project is, and oh, by the way, this project is worth a lot more money. There is a project here. We just didn't ask the right questions, right? So I want it delivered, which has value, and it's probably the most important thing on here. I want it at a specific time, which is huge. Try and get a courier to deliver something at the exact time a customer wants. What's that going to cost you? Oh, and you need it picked up again. Okay. And yes, everybody needs help setting up. Nobody knows how to set up. I know people have been doing this for 20 years. They can't set up a tripod screen. And then they're going to want to move it around. And then they're going to want to use their projector, which, oh, by the way, they don't know how to use. Right? Does this sound familiar? Have you ever done this gig? Great. I know this is oversimplification, but this is real. And this is where we're going to start from, because that's where our problems start. The sum of the parts does not create value. 1 + 1 can't equal 3, but it could if you did the right things. Making the parts work together has value. Doing it better, doing it faster, doing it on time, doing it with flexibility has value. In order to sell that value, you have to, well, hello, be a salesperson. We have to exercise some salesmanship. We also have to learn how to put together the budget differently so that we understand where the value actually is, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today. All right. So I'm going to give this to you in 4 lessons. All right. I told you I got a lot of content today. 4 lessons. Lesson number 1, focus on outputs, not inputs. A projector is an input. A delivery charge is an input. What is the output? The output is what the customer is trying to buy. You could also call it an outcome. And back in the audio days, we called it goes intas and goes outas, right? You don't charge for the goes intas, you charge for the goes outas. The size of your console, the inputs doesn't matter. It's the size of the output of your console. That's where the value is. So we need to ask better questions. Rental people tend to think about inputs first. I need you to get thinking about the outcomes or outputs first. To figure out what the outcome is or the output needs to be, you need to ask better questions. I need to rent a screen and I want it delivered. Excellent. Our minimum delivery charge is $150 each way. Do you also need me to pick it up when it's done, or are you going to bring it back yourself? That's a perfectly fair question. The worst they can do is hang up the phone on you, right? Oh my goodness, no, I didn't realize it would be so much. Well, you can rent more stuff from me. The delivery charge is still $150 each way. So tell me more about what you're doing. It gets us to the more valuable part of the conversation. So you can say, well, we're going to use our own projector. Well, tell me more about your projector. Well, when you find out that they can't tell you anything about their projector, you can say, have you actually set it up before? Okay, I can help you. Okay. Asking the question that, have you verified that a screen will fit into this room? Oh, well, no, I thought I've seen a screen in there before, I think. All right. So there's a whole lot of things here that we haven't done. We skip when all we do is think about the inputs. We can add inputs up easily. The outcome is we've got an individual here who's giving a presentation in a room that doesn't have a projector or a screen, that wants to look good. They need help, and they are not going to do it on their own. This is not a DIY call, right? Now, what's the problem they're trying to solve here? Well, there's certainly the convenience of delivery, because let's face it, not a tripod screen doesn't fit in everybody's car, and who wants to go pick something up, right? This person probably needs to look good. They're doing a presentation, right? And they're probably insecure about technology. We can verify that with a few simple questions, right? So all the information is there. We just have to ask for it. Now we get the opportunity to reframe the request, okay? All right, now I understand what you need. Here's how we can help. Okay. And you can be apologetic, say, look, I'm sorry, rental and delivery for a tripod screen is just not practical for us, but here's what we can do for you instead. I have a full service solution. Oh, well, tell me more. What does that look like? Great. So now our outputs look like this. We can help you by meeting you after office hours, because that's important to you. You learn from your questioning. You can't do this during business hours. Our technician will bring the screen and projectors, She'll bring the extra pieces to support your projector. She'll bring the screen. She'll set everything up. She'll help you connect your computer. She'll make sure you're comfortable. She'll move it if it's not in the right place. When you are comfortable, you can send the technician away. And then one of our team will come back the next day, sometime in the open 4-hour afternoon window, and pick it up. This way I can minimize your cost, but I can give you everything that you're looking for. And it's $500, which, and you do not need to say this, happens to be our minimum, right? How many of you have asked me what a minimum order should be? Well, here's a minimum order. Okay. Somebody who's actually paying you what it's worth to do what you're doing. That is a minimum order. Okay. It's not a dollar value. It's a captured value. We're capturing all the value here. Do I need to show the client this line item? Absolutely not. You would be insane to do that. Okay. It doesn't mean that you won't. I know some of you will, okay, but it's not necessary, because if you're solving all their problems and you're giving them a price, which, oh, by the way, is not that much money for somebody who's in an office building doing a presentation and they already own a video projector, okay, the worst that can happen is they say, oh, no. I can probably just get somebody to deliver the screen and they're going to go on down the street and they're out of your hair. They're not an ideal customer, are they? Great. Lesson number 1. Lesson number 2, let's get away from this rental model, because I just wanted to show you how to develop value, but let's talk about something that's better for you, which is a project. So whatever a large budget means to you, for some of you, a large budget is 10,000. Some of you it's 50, 100, 500, $1 million. It works the same way. If we're budgeting a job, especially today, trying to capture value, trying not to do the 1 + 1 = 2, trying to get 1 + 1 = 3, you have to do the process backwards from the way most of you do it. And I have watched hundreds of people build quotes in their rental management software, and you all do it the same way, with few exceptions. You start with the equipment list. Let's do it the other way around. You need to establish a non-negotiable baseline budget. The non-negotiables are the things, the human things it's going to take to get the job done without even adding a single piece of equipment. That lady could have been renting a laser pointer for $5 and the delivery would still have been $150 and $150 to pick it back up again. Okay. That is a non-negotiable baseline. Right? So when you're putting together a budget for a show, for instance, you start with whatever technical design and whatever those fees are going to be. If there's going to be site visits, put 1 or 2 of those in there. The technical team that it's going to take to run the show. And I hear you're going right now, oh, I don't know what the technical team is. That's why I put the equipment together first. Yes, you actually do know what the technical team is. Think about it. If you're going to put audio, video, and lighting in a room for a sales meeting for 500 people, you know you're going to have at a minimum these 5 show positions, okay, or 3 or 10 or whatever it is. You have a sense of what it's actually going to be, so you can put together the technical team. You have done a show in that ballroom before. You can copy another quote if the labor was right. Put together the expenses for that team. Add the logistics, travel, trucking, shipping, whatever it takes to get everything there. Put in a setup crew, put in a teardown crew. Figure out what the overtime is going to be. Put any crew meals or expenses that you're going to have to incur because of all of this. Where does this model come from? I've told you guys this story before, right? Sandy Rockwork, God bless him, was a show caller who did 1 job a year as a TD for a client. And she would say, Sandy, I need a budget for my show. And he'd say, tell me what you're doing. And she'd describe the show, just like your clients will describe their shows to you. And this was a producer. She knew how to describe her show. And then he'd sit down and he would add up the cost of technical design, site visits, technical team, all the expenses, logistics, everything on that list right there. And he'd go, you've spent $75,000 now. What do you want to do with the equipment? So what equipment do we need to do this? So I've got $75,000 of expense before we've added any gear. Oh, okay. So this is a bigger show than I thought it was. Good. I'm glad we've got that figured out. That was the point, because she's not going to argue with any of this because these are baselines. Well, can't we do it with less? no, because you're going to tell me what it is you want the gear to do, and I'm probably going to have to add to it. Oh, okay. But at least I've got a baseline. So baselines are great. Okay. Baselines tell you very important stuff, like, change the slide, that this is basically all the income items that have a direct cost. Think about your P&L, think about your job cost system. Everything on that list has a direct cost. You're going to have to pay somebody to do it. I don't care if they're on staff, you're still having to pay them. There is an associated cost with everything. And certainly if you had to outsource it, there's an associated cost, so you can figure out what the replacement cost is. Okay, these are the items that have a non-negotiable price. One thing we've learned as being rental people is we don't negotiate labor. Part of it is because we never thought that's where we made money, but in fact, labor is where you make money. But don't negotiate labor. Okay, make sure your labor numbers have profit built into them, and that you can support the need for that labor. If you were to reduce this baseline to try and make the budget work so that you could have a bigger lighting package or a bigger sound system or a bigger LED wall, and I know you've tried to do this, you're effectively giving the client a deeper equipment discount. You just lied to yourself about where the discount was applied. You applied it to labor, which is insane. It takes a minimum number of people. And if you go, well, I've got a guy who can do both of these jobs, stop yourself. Okay, you just subsidize that job. There's two positions. You should hire two people. You should provide two people. The fact that you have one person who could do it both has value. Charge for the value. Send one person to do something else if that's what you have to, but you're leaving value on the table. All right. So we've got this part figured out. Now we're going to add the basic equipment, right? Just the fax man, the minimum it takes to do it. I got 500 people at banquet rounds in a ballroom. I need sound to do that. I've got awards on a stage that's 12 feet deep by 30 feet wide. I need front and back lights because we're doing IMAG. Basic, basics, basics. Put the most cost-effective approach in, okay? Lighting, we're going to illuminate. We're going to have to put some black drape in there. So we're going to throw some uplights on there because that's a minimum. No flash and trash, no fancy decor, no scenery, just the bare bones. Now, I've got all this. What is this going to tell me? You now have a minimum price for the job, right? If this exceeds the customer's budget, that's important data. Okay, that's going to affect the next question that you ask. If there's budget left over, you can now include options and upgrades that make sense in customer terms. So now your conversation has changed a little bit different. Here's what we can do. Now I'm going to add the embellishments, options, and upgrades to it. So what's it going to cost? Oh, we want to bring a band for the party on Saturday night. Great. There's an upgrade for that. You know, we really want to have screens in the back of the room as well as the front of the room for whatever reason. Great. Here's an option for that. We'd like to have a more excitement for the awards. Great. Here's the option for that. Okay. Scenic design affair. We'd like a nicer looking set. Great. Here's some designs. What do you like? Great. Here's an option for that. We want more yeses. No, nobody ever asks for it that way. But customers, the less they understand about how things work, the more they want you to say yes when they ask a question. Okay. The more yeses, the more flexibility, the higher the fees. Put in more yeses. Okay. And when they say, well, how can I reduce this? I said, I can take this out. But that means when you ask me to do this, I'm going to have to tell you no. And you're going to ask me to do this. So I don't recommend you take that out. So now you're changing the conversation about negotiation. So now you've put in all these parts and pieces. We know what's going on. And it tells us something else. It tells us how far any remaining budget can go. Okay. It is defining your recommendations to the customer. Here are the things that I think are important for you to spend your budget on. Here are the things that I think are optional. Okay. This is now the ultimate feedback on needs versus budget. We're now talking about value. Okay. Instead of how can I do the show that I want to do, even though the client doesn't have enough money. Okay. So I've got all this information. Now I can discuss the budget and the options with the customer. So I present the baseline and show how it meets their basic needs. Okay, this is what it's going to take to get us started. Here are the options. You asked for this. This is how we would accomplish that. You probably need this. Here's how we would accomplish that. I highly recommend that you do this based on the thing that you said. Everything connects back to your previous conversations, and that's very, very important in this process. Now you're going to zero on the final budget to option ratio so you can write a final proposal. Because believe it or not, you haven't written the proposal yet, and you actually haven't finished the budget. Whoa, you know more about what things are worth and what they cost. You shouldn't have to build a detailed line item quote to get close to the number, but you can put the basics in. This is a great way in your rental management system to have templates for, banquet and medium-sized ballroom, all the parts and pieces there. You have a baseline quote. Optional upgrades can be in the baseline quote, and there's something that you can pull out if you don't need them. There's lots of ways to get these numbers quickly if you don't actually have the practical experience, or like I used to do, have a cheat sheet on my desk, because let's face it, you only quote about 10 different types of jobs a year with minor variations. Lesson number 3, okay? We've extracted some value. We figured out what's important to the customer so that we can present the outputs instead of the inputs when we build the proposal. But let's look at the entire process so that we can get there consistently and reliably with good numbers. So the step-by-step process, and I'll walk through each step on this. There's the needs assessment, which is your conversation with the customer. You present whatever capabilities or options that you need them to consider to learn more about what their tastes are. And taste is important. What's the fit and finish they're looking for? Are they looking for excitement, or do they want to look austere? Okay, you need enough information to know how to proceed. Establish a budget range with them. Every client has a budget. It may be wrong, it may be unfounded, but there is a budget number in their head. There are very simple ways to extract this from them. Here's a typical example. Usually when people ask for this, their show ends up looking like this. This is a $50,000 to $75,000 event. Is that what you had in mind? Oh, no, I don't think we have that kind of money. So great, that's wonderful information. Move on to your next question. So we review a draft design, we're going to process feedback, we're going to finalize the proposal, we're going to present the proposal, talk about the terms, set up the next steps. Let's walk through each piece of this, right? Needs assessment. Ask enough questions so you can mirror the customer's request back to them. At the end of a good needs assessment, you should be able to say, this is an internal sales meeting to learn about new products, improve sales skills, and motivate the team. Am I correct? Yes. You're seeking a production partner to help express the theme, manage the content, develop the process, make sure your speakers feel taken care of, and suggest some motivational elements to make it more exciting, and then deliver the technical elements of the event. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Great. And you've told me that you value transparency and cost effectiveness. However, you're willing to invest more budget for increased audience engagement. You just don't understand yet how that's going to work. Very good. Awesome. Now you have enough information to talk about options, or better, the good, better, best solutions, right? So I can do the cost of the baseline. Maybe I'm doing this in between this needs assessment of the next phone call, or all of this is happening in one phone call, which can happen. I do this, I give them their baseline estimate. If you know what the baseline estimate is, which is actually the easiest part of the budget to put together, for a event production, full service event production, audio, video, lighting, and a little bit of decor or scenic, you could take the labor equipment baseline and you can multiply it by 2, and you have a show budget and you don't even have to put the gear together. Okay. So a good solution is a 2 times baseline. A better solution is a 3 times. So, well, your baseline cost for this is about $50,000. This is what you're saying in your head. Therefore, a good solution would be this is about $100,000 event, or what you say is this is a $90,000 to $130,000 event. However, I have clients who want a lot more elements and flash and trash and more things to post on their Insta. They would probably spend $150,000 to $200,000. It's real easy this way to get you to a basic number. Remember, you can post questions anytime in the Q&A box. I'll get to them. I know I'm a bit of a fire hose and I don't give you time to think, but you're noodling stuff. I can hear you writing. All right. By doing this little feedback loop of giving them some examples developed out of the baseline that you developed, we're going to determine more about their budget and their taste. Okay. Some of your clients are going to skew towards budget. Some are going to skew towards taste or fit and finish, as we like to say. Affirm the budget range for either. Okay. If they're budget oriented and taste is not important or fit and finish is not as important, that's going to put us on the lower end of the budget range. If the look and feel, fit and finish is important to them, that's going to probably put us on the higher end of the ranges that you're sharing. Okay. Bring up some of the options to consider, then you're going to move on to the next step. And the next step is to schedule a next call to either review designs, if there's a design step in here, explore the options that you're going to develop to go with the baseline, or to present the draft proposal, or maybe all three. Okay. This, what will help most sales processes, as I've done in other webinars, is adding that step, putting a step between discovery and presenting the proposal. We need that middle step to talk about the draft. Here's what I think my proposal is going to be. Let me run a few of these ideas past you. I think our budget is going to be about in that range, but I want to make sure which one of these things is more valuable to you, what you want to do, blah, 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 blah. You'll get some feedback that'll get you much tighter on your proposal. So we want to do that process. Now, you're going to get feedback. You're going to process it. You're going to put that into the scope. You're going to change the fit and finish. You're going to, whatever you need to do to meet the budget in this middle step of the conversation. You're going to look at the terms that need to be offered to this customer based on their tastes and how they meet the budget. For instance, they may have tastes that are up here, but their budget's here. I can close the gap between those two with terms. I can get you this level of taste, but not at the budget that you have. However, if you'll pay an extra 10% or pay me right away, or any one other term that is valuable to you, or pay by check instead of credit card, go down the list, I can get you closer to your budget or closer to your preferences. So we process the feedback, we write a sales scope of work, which is what we share with the client. It's basically the thing I just mirrored back to them a few minutes ago. We're going to write the sales scope of work. Optional, many of you are going to write your operations scope of work because you're developing a detailed budget that's basically an operational pull sheet, because that's the way your company is set up, and that's fine. Nobody's going to judge you for doing that. So write the operations scope of work too, because you also need to be able to explain to the team what it is we're going to do in operational terms that are not the same as client terms. Okay. Then you assemble your proposal elements for an online presentation or an in-person presentation, have a PDF backup so they have a takeaway document. We've done this part. You know how to do this. Deliver the proposal. Okay. So now we're going to sit down with the client, whether it's a Zoom call or it's in person, however you're going to do it. Restate the agreed upon priorities for design, budget, options, and terms. Basically mirror everything you've said. Here's the lines I'm working in. Here are the parameters you set for me. I'm going to then talk about my project process. This can be in the proposal. Here's the next step. Here's what happens. You initiate the proposal. We're going to have this meeting. We're going to have this meeting. We're going to assign this person. This thing's going to happen. Okay. Deadlines. We need these materials from you. All of this can be in the proposal. Okay. Terms and conditions, all the stuff that goes in the proposal template that I've shared with you guys many times. Accept and mirror any feedback that they get, because you may not be done. You might have to go back and make some revisions and say, okay, what I'm hearing you say is, if I will revise this from A to B, everything else is good. I'll take care of that. I'll send you the electronic agreement to sign. right? So this process, whether it's a $15,000 job or a $500,000 job, will work much better than going in, building an equipment list, adding the labor, and then discounting it to get to the budget. Lesson number 4 in all this. Some tips on proposals. Okay, I'm gonna just give you a couple of things to remind you. I'm gonna remind you of what the basic proposal template looks like. Here it is. Or maybe it's not, because I've got the spinning ball of death. You know, in the basic proposal template, we've got dates, we've got deadlines. The next steps is what I talked about. Here are the things that are going to happen. We describe the sales scope of work to the customer. We derive the scope of work, which is a little bit more specific. We're going to give you 3 finished videos with up to 5 editing revisions of certain length, blah, 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 blah. Summarize the budget, put in any options that are still available to them that they haven't decided yet, okay? And some of the options are do this faster, do this sooner, pay on a different set of terms. Lots of different options here that may not actually affect the scope of work, but affect the terms and conditions and timing. So summarize everything, put a place in there for them to sign, and let's get this job done. Okay. Changes since the last time I talked about this in terms of terms. So here's some terms that have come up that I think you need to pay attention to. You can change the terms. You can extend a payment timeline without changing the price. That's a term condition that you can move. That's flexibility. So flexibility has value. So use flexibility in your terms. You can increase your non-refundable deposits for a 5%, 10% price reduction. If the client says, oh man, I need to get the budget down, I said, great, here's what I can do. Instead of the 30% deposit I was going to charge you, I need a 50% deposit. And it's non-refundable. Is that okay? So just increase the size of non-refundables, get your money faster, don't give it back, but instead you're giving them a slightly better price, right? Accept payment in full for a 5 or 10% price reduction. You should have margin in there. If they pay by credit card, you're taking 5% hit anyway, right? Restate all equipment discounts. If you're selling on discounts, particularly like to the producer channel, treat them as on-time payment discounts. That discount is contingent upon you getting paid as agreed. If they don't pay you as agreed, that's the way discounts were always intended to be. There's a generation or two in our industry who didn't learn that. I want you to learn that again. Discounts are contingent upon meeting payment terms. And then quote a cash discount. In other words, if you don't want to process credit cards or take the credit card payment hit, quote a cash discount. Here's the price if you, whatever terms you want to pay. However, if you will send us a check or do a wire transfer or an ACH, then here's your cash price. Okay. Learn how to do all of these things. They will address a lot of the issues that you guys are bringing to me. Some other things that you need to do in this world, add marketing pages as an addendum. If I open up your proposal and I see 5 pages of marketing, which basically looks like you just cut and paste your website onto a PDF, I'm going to be pissed. Okay. It's already too late to do marketing. By the time somebody's looking at your proposal, you're done marketing. If you feel compelled, if you know they're going to share it with other people, there are people who don't know you, include the marketing, but put it in as an addendum. My goodness, everybody can look at a website on their phone. It doesn't need to be printed out or included in a PDF for them. Do use a branded proposal template, okay? Just because you're not putting marketing into your proposal doesn't mean that your proposal can't be marketing, right? So there's nothing wrong on the customer scope of work page to put some images on there and put some graphics on there. You know, there's nothing wrong with putting a themed template together to help them understand how you contribute, little reminders of what it is that you're doing for them. Nothing wrong with that at all. I strongly encourage it, okay? Think of a proposal as a presentation, not a documentation. Okay, that's what a proposal is. I'm presenting everything we've agreed upon. I'm reinforcing the fact that this is what you want and what you talked about, and making it easy and frictionless for you to engage by signing it, hey, electronically, please. Nobody should be getting a wet signature at this day and age. Make sure your proposal is customer friendly. All right, let me summarize this, and then it'll be time to start thinking about answering some questions here, because I see a couple of them coming in. All right. So quick to summarize, reframe customer requests as outputs or outcomes, right? Start turning their language back around, saying, what I'm hearing you say is you want to look good after this presentation. What I'm hearing you say is you don't want to have to lift a finger to make this work. Find better words, right? Build your budget backwards, okay? Starting with people first, starting with the things that are non-negotiable that you don't discount. The bare minimum is going to take to do that. We can add the equipment later, but let's face it, if you've got sound for 50 people, it still takes an audio person. If you have sound for 500, it still takes an audio person, okay? Right, so you have an idea of how many people it's going to take to do the job. At least leverage the customer-facing steps in the proposal process, right? You do some things in this process that are customer facing. We need to take that information. We need to give it back to the customer. They need to see that in their proposal. They need to know that they were an active collaborative participant in this process, right? I often say this as the customer needs to see their own words. They need to know that you were listening, and that's how you do it. And then when you make your proposal an engaging presentation, even if you are not an engaging presenter, the proposal can do this for you, okay? So put some life into that proposal, and not only are you going to be able to capture the value that you're trying to sell, okay, the customer is going to be happy to sign that proposal, which is what we're looking for. Okay, get some questions going in there. Keep them coming. Thanks, good stuff so far. Let me remind you of what I do, right, guys? I'm a business consultant. I help people. I work with people just like you. I know your business model. I know your people. I say stuff all the time that you guys were just talking about in your management meeting. It's like I was listening. It's because this is my industry. This is what I do. So I don't have a microphone in your room, but I do have my ear on the industry, so I know what's going on. So let's have an honest conversation. When I'm talking to the owner or principal of a business, I want to know what their goals are. I want to know what's keeping them from getting there or moving faster to get there. And let's talk about how soon you want to get started on this. So stop by my website, click on the Let's Talk page, set up an appointment. Happy to talk to you. If you are interested in being a part of a peer group, which is the most cost-effective way to engage with me and have the benefit of peers who are also familiar with the business, or you learn from them, they learn from you. It's a fantastic model. Then let's have a conversation about that. I have a couple different peer groups. I want to figure out where you best fit in, where you're going to get the most value. We'll certainly talk about the coaching benefits of being in a peer group, because you get one-on-one coaching with me every month, but you might need more than that. Let's have a conversation. Let's get you started. September 23rd is the next peer group starting, so I'd love to give you on board as soon as possible. Next month's webinar, yay. So now that we're selling better, how do we create measurable conversion in your sales pipeline? Sometimes I see a lot of effort. How do I know that my marketing is working? How do I know my business development is working? How do I know that my sales team is working? How do I measure this other than anecdotes? We can measure this. I'm going to show you how we do it. It's not difficult. There's going to be some aha moments for you, but it is based on the model of building a sales funnel. So expect to have some sales funnel language in there. It's very important to this process. All right, let's do a few questions here. Okay, question. All right. So question is it okay to have a minimum order amount? Okay, I kind of mentioned that earlier in the webinar. Sure, you can have a minimum order amount. The question is symptomatic of other issues. So I always want to know what's behind that issue. But if you're going to have a minimum, try and include actual value in the minimum. And the $500 minimum, that person didn't rent anything. I mean, they rented a screen, they could leave the screen off and I could show up with a projector support package, set up their computer, and I'm still going to make $300 when it's all said and done. So take a look at where the value is created, because that's what people are willing to pay for. Much more so now than pre-pandemic or even a year ago. Good question. I say, if you are presenting creative concepts and ideas, do you not agree that those items should be copyrighted? The client should be reminded that these are proprietary, so they can't use them with another vendor. Yeah, put a watermark on them, right? Yes, they are technically copyrighted. If you remind them, you're creating an adversarial conversation. To be blunt, you're kind of being a dick about it. It just means somebody hurt you, but you are absolutely right. So put a watermark on them. I said, this design is the property of XYZ Audiovisual. Okay, problem solved. You don't have to call it out. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. If you present a proposal, you can put the clause in there that says, all ideas, designs, and concepts delivered in this proposal are the property of us unless you buy it, right? So, there's very simple language you can put in there. Absolutely. Please protect your intellectual property and don't do business with people who are trying to steal your ideas. So thank you for that question. Okay. Can you quickly clarify? It's not my strong suit, right? Can you quickly clarify the ratio of gear to baseline items on the budget? It was unclear if the 50-50 was just gear labor. Okay, let me explain this. If I'm selling events right now, the ratio of equipment to labor in today's budget, if you've got a $100,000 show, after discount, you should probably have about $45,000 in equipment after discount. There's about $45,000 worth of labor and logistics, labor and labor expenses, and there's probably $10,000 worth of logistics expenses and other, right? So that means I've got a 50-50 ratio between equipment and labor. In a broad scope, your company, if I look at your annual P&L, you probably have a total of, pick a company, 60% net equipment, 35% net labor, 5% other. That means your ratio is 35 to 60. 50-50 is probably where most of you should be. If you're that full service audio, video, lighting, production rental company with the production manager and the team, and you do all of this, provide a little scenery, you should probably be at a 50-50 ratio between equipment and labor. Or another way of saying that, half of your bill should be for services. So if you know what the service number is in your baseline, you could double that and say, this should be approximately, I have $50,000 worth of services, so this should be approximately a $100,000 show, somewhere between 90 and 130, right? So take your number, dip a little bit below it, but go way above it to give it to them. That's what I'm talking about on the ratio. If you know that your ratio should be of labor is typically 40%, then if I've got a $50,000 baseline budget, then my event budget is 120 to 150. Make sense? If not, I'm sure we'll have a conversation about that. Next question. We just did an extensive creative for a large scale permanent installation inclusive of scenic and AV. Asked the client to sign an end date and it was received well with no pushback. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Rob. Yes. Clients respect that more than you would think. There is an era, and I grew up in that era, where people did not respect that. Given how much media and content and interwebs we are dealing with now, we're dealing with music rights and video rights and all these kinds of things. It's much more familiar for somebody to agree to the terms of your creative. Let's see. So we discussed either minimum order amount or doing no B2C rentals. So we're no longer a B2C rental company, and that's fine, as we felt it was taking up too much in terms of resources as the value it brought to the order, blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts on this, and do you agree? I said, it's okay to not be a B2C company. In other words, not sell to consumers. Which is not the same as not selling to end clients. So a consumer is somebody who's going to use it for themselves. 30 years ago, my old company, we said, guys, we're no longer doing, I think the breaking point was a Super Bowl rental. I said, if you rent something to anybody who wants for a Super Bowl party, you are now responsible for servicing it on Super Bowl Sunday if something goes wrong, which is just another way of saying no B2C. So not doing street rentals, which is what I call B2C, that's fine. I'm all for that. Most of you should not be in the street rental business. How are we doing on time? Doing good on time. God, that's unusual. Question, what if your client is a producer who just wants the best deal? In other words, the standard price shopping producer who's trying to figure out. I'm seeing less and less of this because honestly, most producers don't take what you have and sell it. They don't sell it and then buy. They take what you have and they mark it up. So more and more I'm seeing producers don't really care what your deal is because they're going to charge a fee on top of that based on what the deal is. But if you do have somebody who is doing fulfillment, okay, so they're buying from you to fulfill something that they've already sold. One, do they want the best deal anywhere, or do they want the best deal they can get from you? And those are dramatically different things. So when a salesman comes to me and says, oh, these guys want the best deal. No, they want your best deal. They don't want the best deal in the universe. Okay, so let's make sure we're distinguishing what best deal, what's the best deal that you can do. If they want the best deal you can do, that's powerful negotiating position for you. Okay. If they want to do business with you, then offer the best deal you can do. When they want to show you comparisons, they're going to be from companies who don't want to hire. If they wanted to hire those companies, they already would. They're trying to hire you, right? So think about what it means when somebody's saying, God, I need a better deal from you. They're going, they don't like their other choices. Okay. Right now, supply demand, you shouldn't have to break down and give people better deals. You can give them better terms. You can show them how to save money. Lots of other tools at your disposal without reducing your price. Okay. The other thing that you have to ask is that really the most important thing to them? Is getting the best deal the most important thing? Honestly, it's usually third. Okay. Having their favorite PM on the show. There's something more important to them than that. I had one producer who was notorious for trying to beat us up. And I said, look, I can get to your budget. I can give you a little bit more discount. I can get to your budget, but I can't give you Gary. Well, no, I got to have Gary. I said, at that price, I cannot give you Gary. Oh no, I have to have Gary. I said, I can't give you Gary at that price. Okay, that's fine. Just get me Gary. So there's something that's more important to them. Your job is to figure out what it is. Let's see. All right, I'm going to answer this question because I like this question a lot. Can you talk about if and when you see supply catching back up with demand? We don't see it yet. And the fact of the matter is our customers won't know it unless we tell them. So if you will adopt the stance that what you do is valuable, okay, the condition of the supply chain doesn't matter. So while supply is low and demand is high, you have a little bit more leverage, but that's not the thing we actually want to be talking about with our customers. Okay, what you want is a customer who first asks, are you available? Is this the type of work that you do? And is there a price that you will do this for? Okay, that's the conversation that we want. And that has nothing to do with supply and demand, because supply demand is their problem. They're bringing it to you. Supply is your problem. Supply merely affects your pricing and availability, how long you leave your quote open for, right? So don't let them know that you've got people sitting around not doing anything. You got a warehouse full of equipment, which is not a great negotiating position to be in. Make sure that you're understanding what they're trying to accomplish is they want to be comfortable that they have the right company working for them and that's available. But to answer the question in more economic terms, I don't foresee it catching up anytime soon, right? I think for the labor, it's not a labor shortage. We just don't pay enough to get the people to work. For this so-called labor shortage to be relieved in our industry, we need overall, we're going to have to be spending 10 or 20% more on labor than we have been. That will solve the problem. In the meantime, it just minimizes your capacity. You're just going to run out and you're going to say no, which means that you can charge more money. So I don't think supply is our biggest concern. I think our ability to leverage availability against the demand that's coming in is what's really more important here. So it's a great question. It's a great sit around the campfire and drink a beer and talk about question. So I would do that with you at some point. Let's see, one more question here. In your baseline budget, should you include streaming or is that an option? Oh, awesome question. Okay, look, in a baseline budget, I would include streaming with a person to manage it. It's better to leave it in and trade that for budget for something else later. I think, streaming is still very prevalent. We did not see a lot of streaming in the spring events because we had that pent up in-person demand. Basically, the spring was revenge meetings. It's like this summer, we're seeing revenge travel, people having revenge against the pandemic and going on trips, and they're spending $1,500 for an airline ticket. So it's revenge spending. So we saw a lot of revenge spending in the spring. Going forward, we're already seeing buyers going, okay, we're not going to spend that kind of money again. That was kind of stupid, but we need to have this meeting. We do have people that are going to be streaming. We do want to, we see the value in that hybrid model and all the things it brings. So I would include it, right? It's just like I would include, if they have cameras, I would include record. I would force them to say, no, I absolutely don't want that and take it out. So I think it's a great question, but right now I would be putting a streaming solution so you can do a live stream, a managed stream during the event into the quote. Revenge meetings. Yes, you may have revenge meetings because I stole it too. And in a competitive bid, we have to come up with our best price. Yes, I know this. Thanks. Association buyers often want, association question. Association buyers often want a line item quote to compare. Great. So pay attention to the prospect to proposal process. Association buyers will always allow you to ask questions before submitting final quotes. They're probably the most transparent buyers that we have, even though they are a little stodgy and academic sometimes, right? So you're going to go through, you can do that process of having that in-between meeting or even 2 in-between money to dial in the budget. However, if somebody's asking you to do a blind quote, 1, don't do it. 2, call me and I'll tell you don't do it. If somebody's asking you to do a blind quote and you choose to submit a blind quote, you submit that minimum package. You submit the baseline. Here's the minimum that it will take to do this. This is the minimum requirements. Okay. Make sure your scope of work is clear about the capabilities and limits. Okay. In blind quoting situations, the add-ons and the change orders are often significant. That's where you're going to make your money. So if you want to win a competitive blind bid, lowball it. And lowball it is give them the bare minimum that will work. It doesn't have the bells and whistles that somebody might want. Let somebody else quote that, put their quote in at 30, 40, 100% higher than yours, and let them have to go back and revise their quote. The worst thing that can happen to you is they come to you and say, well, we saw some stuff with some other quotes. We'd like you to include your quote and see if that's going to be a good deal for us. And that's exactly where you want them to be. So, all right. I hope this was fun. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you have some great ideas. Please do reach out to me. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. And let's have a conversation. Let's talk about peer groups. Let's talk about coaching. Let's just talk about whatever problems on your plate and let me help you out. If you have any more questions about this, email it to me. I'll process the recording. I'll get it up for you by the end of the day so you can share it with your friends. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.